Well, what I was asking, was it worth it in the long run, considering what happened afterwards?
Well, there were reprisals. That's true.
The reprisals, the destruction of the Czech underground.
Well, you could make the same argument, I suppose, to the French resistance. As you know, there was a standard policy in occupied countries like France that every time a German soldier was killed, the Germans would select 10 people at random and shoot them. There were instances where entire villages were wiped out, whole populations just slaughtered, all in retribution. It was a form of terror. So
let me perhaps answer it this way. Prior to Rome becoming an empire, and prior to its being a republic, it was a kingdom. It was a small kingdom, and it was attacked by a more powerful kingdom from the north. And what happened was the greater army was camped outside the gates of Rome. And they called upon the sons of the Roman aristocracy, and they selected 100 of them. And they said, one by one, until it is done, you are to infiltrate at night the camp of the enemy king until you can get into his tent and kill him. And the first one to go out infiltrated, but he got in the wrong tent. He got into the very elaborate tent of the king's scribe, because in those days it was a wonderful thing to be able to read and write. And he killed the king's scribe. And, of course, they brought him before the king, who was curious as to who this person was and why he'd gone and whacked out his scribe. And he said, before I tell you, he said, bring that brazier over here. They had a charcoal brazier that was illuminating things. And he did. And he took his right hand, and he thrust his fist up to the wrist into the glowing charcoal, and he stared at the king until he withdrew nothing but a glowing stump. And he said, there are 100 more like me who are coming to kill you. And at that point, the king said, no, you're not. And he packed up and they left. And ever since, that man has been famous in the history of Rome as Scaevola, the left-handed. What that means is, no matter what the cost, we will resist you. We will kill you, and you will not force us to give up. That's how a brave people resists retaliation.
Okay. I like that story, Gordon. That was great. Could I just ask one more thing? That is, let me talk to Cameron and get an autographed picture of him.
Certainly, sir.
Thank you, Gordon.
You're very welcome, sir. All right, we'll move along now to... We're back here at Radio Free DC, the G. Gordon Liddy Show. And now, we are very delighted to bring to you Mr. J. Simpkin. He is the research director of Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. And Mr. Simpkin is a formidable individual. He has a BA, and that's in International Studies at Johns Hopkins, an MA in Political Science, both completed simultaneously in 4 years, plus a doctorate in the international history from the London School of Economics. So we are dealing with a capable man here. And his organization is an educational organization dedicated to preserving the civil right of the law-abiding person to be armed. It's a tax-exempt organization. It doesn't lobby for or against specific pieces of legislation. It accepts no money from other organizations concerned with the issue. Its officers, such as Mr. Simpkins, are volunteers. It is open to all law-abiding persons, regardless of race, religion, creed, or national origin. About 75% of the members are Jewish, 25% are not. And the only persons not welcome to join the JPFO are convicted felons, which, of course, Mr. Simpkins, leaves me out. And I am in sympathy with your aims. But rules are rules. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you, and we hope that in due course and not long delayed, you can apply to the court to have this disability removed.
Well, that would be nice. However, I don't think that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms holds me in any great esteem, and it is mutual.
Well, on that, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, okay.
Appreciate your warm welcome. And I'm sort of interested here, you mentioned the term BATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Benson, a few days ago announced that 3 shotguns were being reclassified from ordinary kinds of shotguns to, quote, destructive devices, end quote.
Yes, I remember that.
As being, quote, not, or as not having a sporting purpose.
Yeah, although there's nothing in the United States Constitution which says that the people's right to keep and bear arms is limited to firearms with a, quote, sporting purpose, and these are not imported firearms, and that sporting purpose thing comes out of the infamous 1968 Gun Control Act.
Do you know where it came or how it got into the 1968 Act?
I have been led to understand that then Congressman Dodd called for and received a copy in the original German of the Nazi German Third Reich gun control law of 18 March 1938, had it translated, and that the Gun Control Act of 1968 of the United States bears a remarkable resemblance to the Nazi weapons law. Is that so?
Our research shows that you were wrong in only one respect, and it is significant. That is this. Dodd did not get the German original of the Nazi weapons law from the Library of Congress, who translated it for him. He owned it.
He owned it?
It was he who sent it over to the Library of Congress, and this is in the public record. He sent a German original copy that he owned over to the Library of Congress for translation.
That is interesting.
Mr. Dodd, or the late Senator Dodd, was the Assistant Executive U.S. Trial Counsel at Nuremberg, the post-World War II trials of German war criminals. We think that's where he came to know this law. It was not introduced in evidence, but a law that was introduced in evidence there was published immediately in front of this Nazi weapons law in the German law series.
Wow.
The term sporting purpose is nowhere defined in the 68 law, and it never appeared in federal firearms laws prior to 1968. I know. I've gone into statutes at large, which is where U.S. laws are published.
Correct.
Along with the amendments, the term sporting purpose is never mentioned. That's one of the clues. It's not the only clue, but it's one of the clues that the 68 Gun Control Act in the United States was indeed cloned from the Nazi weapons law.
The Nazi weapon law mentions sporting purposes?
It does indeed, under the implementing regulations, Section 32, and I quote, "Hunting weapons in the meaning of Section 21 of the law are firearms designed for and usually used for the hunting of fair game, period." The Nazis at least defined it.
Yes.
In 68 GCA, it was not defined. Everything else is defined. What a rifle is, what a dealer is, what a buyer is, what a shotgun is. But this term, sporting purpose, is not defined.
Well, that, of course, is so that they can define it any way they want.
Absolutely correct. Now, the significance, beyond the fact that Nazi laws have no place in the United States,
Correct.
or laws cloned off of Nazi laws have no place in the United States, is that we have found something further, which we think is very interesting to Americans.
Tell us what that is. Yeah, go ahead. I'm very eager to hear that.
There have been at least 7 major genocides in the world since 1900. One of them almost occurred here in 1941-42 when Japanese Americans were deported from the west coast of the United States to concentration camps in the interior.
That's correct. I remember that.
And by the way, the term concentration camps was used by the New York Times to describe these places. That's not our term.
Yeah.
Okay.
The original German is Concentration Lager, is it not?
Konzentration Lager, yeah. My German is fairly good. Okay.
That certainly sounds it.
The 7 major genocides that occurred, I'll just name the countries: Turkey, Russia, China, Guatemala, Uganda, Cambodia, and of course the Nazi genocide against 6 million Jews and 7 million Gentiles. Nazis murdered 2,700 people per day, every day that they were in power. In every one of these 7 genocides, Gordon, there was on the books, before the onset of the genocide, a gun control law.
Well, it would have to be, because how in the world could you expect a people, knowing that they're being marked for death by their government, not to resist with arms if they had arms?
But of course, Simpkins Rule 42A, the important things are simple.
You know, and of course you had in the Warsaw Ghetto, they were able to get some arms, and they fought valiantly for days against the SS.
For as long as they could. It went on for about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, what is significant is that in 5 of these 7 major genocides, we're talking about 56 million people being murdered.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 of the 7, there were these laws were on the books prior to the coming to power of the regime that committed the genocide. So it's not as if the Nazis came to power in Germany, enacted gun control, and proceeded to butcher 13 million people. No. The Nazis inherited gun control in Germany. When they came to power, they inherited, when they took over police stations, they inherited lists of who owned which firearms.
Yeah, registration.
Yeah, and it beggars logic to think that the Nazis were going to let Jews, socialists, and other people that they didn't care for to continue to hold these firearms.
You know,
So that gun control is the key to genocide. You cannot, as you pointed out, I mean, obviously it was obvious to you, but you cannot have genocide without gun control. So the question is, why does anyone want this policy?
a very, very good question. And I tell you what, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'd like to discuss that question with you. And I would also like to get your insights on the little mini-side, if you will, that occurred at Waco against all those Branch Davidian Christians, including the women and children, against whom was deployed a poison gas so bad that it has been banned in warfare. We'll be right back with more of Jay Simkin from the fine organization Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, right after this break.
The G. Gordon Liddy Show, Radio Free DC. More from the G. Gordon Liddy Show.
Here at Radio Free DC, the G. Gordon Liddy Show. In this hour, we are interviewing Dr. Jay Simkin, Research Director of Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. He has just disclosed on this program that the origin of the United States 1968 Gun Control Act as the Nazi-German Third Reich Gun Control Act of 1938. And I wanted to discuss with you, Mr. Simkin, do you see any kind of a foreshadowing of what may be befalling us with all of this gun control legislation, what have you, in what happened to the hapless Branch Davidian women and children?
Only to the extent that when the law focuses on things rather than people who abuse those things, it leads to situations not only such as that which occurred in Waco, but that which has occurred here and there around the country where local police officers or agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms have gone into people's homes and searching for weapons and have severely injured people in the process. In other words, people that did not would not otherwise have attracted their attention, and in many cases they haven't found the weapons that they were told were there because the informant lied to them. The problem in America, simply put, is this. There is a view, and it is quite wrong, that, gee, there are too many firearms, and that's why we have a lot of murders. The murder rate in America has been approximately stable at 10 per 100,000 for the past 18 years. The number of firearms in America, specifically handguns, has doubled in that time. Therefore, more guns do not equal more murders.
Well, yes.
Simply, I mean, those are the numbers. They're published by the Department of Justice and in various forums, Uniform Crime Reports, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. These are official numbers. Their own numbers say that this is not a problem. Everyone talks about, quote, assault rifles. That is, by the way, a Nazi term. It's a translation of Das Sturmgewehr. But military-type rifles, we are told, are a problem of 21,204 murders known to have taken place in Chicago.
Yeah, but the Sturmgewehr were fully automatic, not Maschinenpistole.
Yeah, okay. Let us not get into the minutiae. This is like the Nazis measuring people's faces to find out if they were Jews. The critical point here is that of 21,204 murders known to the police in Chicago between 1965 and 1992, 9 involved rifles that could have been military-type rifles. 9 out of 21,204. This is a major city in the United States.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right, but
so
I see this total uncaring for the the lives of the women and children, what have you, as something that I remember when I was in the FBI. We went to extraordinary lengths. If there was a dangerous felon and he had a woman with him, or God forbid he had a woman with a child with him and everything, we would go to extraordinary lengths to see to it that no harm would come to the woman and the child. And yet they've applied gas that is illegal in warfare. I don't know. I've been criticized by some of my Jewish friends by saying that it just sort of reminded me slightly of the tactics of the Heimschutzpolizei, and they said, well, no, wait a minute, you can't use that. That's insensitive because of everything they do. I don't mean that they are the same, but I'm simply saying that this is absolute uncaring, and this idea that these things are more important than people, and the idea that if people own these things, that the people are evil, and therefore anything can be done to them.
That I share your view. It's a matter of degree, obviously. A point that needs to be made, and I make this to my Jewish brethren, what you do not know, or what most of you do not know, is that under the Nazi weapons law of 18 March 1938, regulations were enacted the day after the Night of Broken Glass. Yeah. That is to say, on the 10th of November, Kristallnacht, specifically banning Jews from owning any weapons, including firearms.
But, Jay, what I want to do is schedule another interview with you, because you've got so much more to say. We're running out of time. How can people listening get in touch with the JPFO?
Give us a call at area code 414-769-0760. I'll say that again. Area code 414-769-0760. Or you can write to us at JPFO 2872 South Wentworth Avenue. It's one word, WENTWORTH Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53207.
All right, you don't have to be Jewish to like bagels, and you don't have to be Jewish to be in the JPFO. Join up, folks. It's your life and your rights that could be hanging in the balance. Thank you, Jay Simpkin. We will see you again shortly, I hope.
Thank you very much.
God bless. All right, next up from Tucson, Arizona, it is Cindy. Cindy, you're on Radio Free DC.
Hi, Mr. Liddy. Boy, this is an honor and a pleasure, and now that I know that you like ABBA, you just went that much further in my esteem.
Wonderful, Cindy. I'm delighted to be up there in your esteem. Now, how may I help you this afternoon?
Well, I had about 3 things that I wanted to go over that deal with gun control and guns, and even though it's an awful disease, as I understand, there's 2 things that I think that we need to look at in our society.
Okay.
Well, one of the ones that I have talked to all of my senators and congresspeople about is the fact that when they allow something like the Feinstein bill to be included in a crime package, they are saying that law-abiding citizens are the same as the criminal element out there on the street.
Yes, that's the clear implication.
And it's very subtle, and I feel that this has a very bad effect on the population as far as actually putting forth the gun control issue. And I get very upset. Senator McCain voted for the crime package with the Feinstein Amendment in there, and it really upset me.
Yeah, that's a good reason to vote against Senator McCain the next time he's up for re-election.
Absolutely. Well, he got a very stiff letter from me about it.
Good.
And I very much feel like what I had told him was that gun control is not going to work, as we all know. And
never has.
No, it's not going to. And the thing that people don't seem to realize, it's not going to solve the problem in our society. Our Constitution as it stands is a trust. It was handed to us as a trust by our forefathers, and we need to pass it intact to our future generations, not give up on it just because we're having a problem in our society today.
Correct.
The other thing that we're doing, and for gun people out there, whoever who's listening, we have formed a women's group here in Tucson.
Excellent. There are millions and millions of women who now recognize that they are seriously at risk from violent criminals who have decided that they're not going to follow the advice of the women's magazines and just lock their car doors and then when the guy breaks the window just consent. They are going to arm themselves and they are going to protect themselves.
Exactly. Well, the thing that we're doing, some of the women in our group are avid shooters. They're in. We've got one that's two, I think, that are definitely into full autos. They, have gone through all the background checks and everything, and I mean, they love it. We have several that are in on it because their husbands are involved. I'm in it because I believe in our Constitution and my rights. And so it's kind of a grassroots type thing, and from what I understand, that this is going to be the only way that we are going to get and be able to preserve these rights is if we have these grassroots movements.
Well, it's not only is it important for women to preserve their rights because they are citizens of this country, but it is also important for women to realize that the police cannot protect them, and if they're to be protected against marauding evil men, they are going to have firearms. It's the only thing they can do, and millions of them are now taking NRA-approved courses. They are buying firearms. So many that firearms manufacturers have now finally gotten it, and they are producing firearms that are particularly suited to women, like the Lady Smith from Smith & Wesson and the rest of it. Fits your hand, easy and pleasant to shoot, etc. And these millions of women understand that nobody ever raped a .38.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, education is what we're trying to say. I mean, granted, there are some women out there that shouldn't own a gun, but there are a lot of women that should.
Why shouldn't they own a gun?
Pardon?
I mean, other than felons and crazy women, why shouldn't a woman own a gun?
Crazy women are the ones I'm talking about.
Oh, all right, yeah.
The ones that, they couldn't think their way out of a paper bag, and that no matter what kind of education you give them, they can have the potential for being dangerous.
Bill Clinton's dates, in other words, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Exactly. But for the majority of the part, I saw a gentleman on TV that I guess was with Colt Industry the other night. I was on Channel 13 here.
Yeah.
And they were stressing one of these, I guess it's like a stun gun type thing, as opposed to a woman having a gun. And he was saying that, women shouldn't have guns because they get them taken away from them. And I'm like, wait a minute, the thing that they missed in the whole program was by the time that guy gets close enough to you to use that thing, you're already in trouble.
That's right. And the other thing is, I would hate to be the sucker who tries to get a gun away from Mrs. Liddy, because he's going to be dead, before he ever gets anywhere near her. Or we have Dr. Seeley Broadhurst, the intergalactic space scientist from.
She sounds wonderful.
Well, she's 9 feet tall. That's first of all, she's one of the biggest women you ever saw, and she's a karate expert, and she's terrific with a firearm. Now, the idea of somebody getting that gun away from C. Lee before C. Lee ventilates them is ludicrous.
Exactly. Well, in my case, I'm short. I'm only 5'2".
Yes,
and I mean, the last thing that I can see is me taking karate, training. It's not going to do me any good against somebody that's, 6'2".
No, but that firearm is. Remember what they say about Colonel Colt, making all people equal?
Exactly.
Be not afraid of any man, no matter what his size. When danger threatens, call on me, and I will equalize. That's why they call that big old 44 Colt the Equalizer.
Exactly. Well, and my favorite gun to shoot is my husband's Colt 45. He's got a Gold Cup, and that's what.
Oh, and that's a very fine. The Gold Cup, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you not familiar with firearms, is one of the finest examples of the Colt government model 45 ACP semi-automatic pistol.
And very accurate.
Very accurate.
Very accurate.
All right, we have a surprise call that has just come in, Cindy, and apparently it has to do with that very crime bill you're speaking of. It's Congressman McCollum from Washington, D.C. is calling us.
Well, maybe we've stirred it up enough. I know I spent most of the afternoon on the phone and complaining about
Good.
it. I want to thank you for staying on the gun issues. I want your people to realize there are no good guns or no bad guns. All guns are equal. That was one of the things that our group came to the conclusion of. You know, you can't have, say, semi-autos are bad and revolvers are good.
Yeah, that's
None of that. It's all the same.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liddy. You're wonderful. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Cindy. You're wonderful yourself. Keep listening. Keep calling in as the spirit moves you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm a real fire eater.
Ah, great. Well, God bless you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and now we're back here at Radio Free DC, the G. Gordon Liddy Show. In this hour, nothing but conversations between us by telephone and by fax. This fax is signed only me. It says, answer these now. 3 exclamation points. 1, what is the function of the United States Marshal Service? It is the transportation of federal prisoners and occasionally the searching for and arresting of fugitives. 2, are you still in debt? No, however, I will be yet again as soon as Mrs. Liddy returns from shopping. 3, do aphrodisiacs work? You bet they do. The most powerful aphrodisiac is the human imagination. The next most powerful one is power. And the other 2 are natural, the odor of natural body fluids like sweat and other things that are produced for the human body. What does the odd, ODD, in 30-odd 6 mean? It doesn't mean anything. It is 30-aught, O-U-G-H-T, meaning 0. 06 stands for the year 1906. 30 is for the caliber. And it's caliber 30, cartridge developed in 1906. It was, right up until the 308 was developed, the standard cartridge for United States military arms, as well as for so many sporting arms. It is superior to the 308. Who cares about spotted owls? A number of environmentalists who make a hell of a lot of money getting $5 from little old ladies to save them, in spite of the fact that every spotted owl saved costs hundreds of hardworking American citizens in Oregon their jobs. 6, why do you talk with food in your mouth? Because there's not time, and they don't give me enough time to finish. Do you like to fish? Yes. Is acid rain really a problem? No. Was Detroit ever nice? Yes. Will rap music ever die? Yes. Who's hotter, Cindy Crawford or Heather Locklear? Neither. The hottest woman alive is Roz Stevens. Let's see, next. Do you ever clean the toilets? Yes, if I'm home alone and they need it. Next, will you ever admit that ABBA sucks? No. As a matter of fact, I think ABBA is a great group. I rank them second only to the Beatles. Next, did you ever meet Donald Trump? No. As a matter of fact, I went out of my way to avoid him. Did Sammy Hagar ruin Van Halen? It's Van Johnson. I think you've got the name wrong. I don't know who Sammy Hagar is, but Van Johnson is still going strong. Who thought of the word sangria? Sangria is actually short for Sangria de la Faronde, which was the name of a priest of the Santeria rite, which is something that came from Africa via Cuba. And what that means is when you drink sangria, it is actually old chicken blood. And that's what it tastes like to me. Have you ever eaten fast food? Yes, and I have also eaten food fast. Both gave me indigestion. At what age did you lose it? 11. What the hell is Zima Clear Malt? Something to treat zits? Why did Bon Jovi ever bother? I understand the French word bon means good. Jovi, I do not understand. That's it.
Can I ask you a question about legal advice?
Sure.
You keep telling people if you have to shoot an assailant or intruder, make sure he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that.
What do you mean you can't do that?
Well, you can only shoot him until he ceases aggression.
Yeah, and
you cannot administer a coup d'etat.
The point is you're there and he's there.
Coup de grace, I mean. Excuse me.
Yeah. He's there and you're there, all right?
Yeah.
And nobody else there.
Well, later...
If he's dead, it's your story, and he didn't cease his aggression until you killed him.
Later, the investigators will show up and be there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't turn him over and put the pistol muzzle in the base of his skull and do that. No, obviously.
Yeah, no, legally, you're only allowed to
to pull the trigger until the aggression ceases.
Yeah, and legally you can only drive 55 miles an hour.
Well, the consequences of the two actions are a bit different.
But again, you make sure he's dead, or the consequences will be much more severe if he's still alive. You kill that guy and make sure he's dead.
I'm a 3-time graduate of Mossad Ayoub's various courses.
Yeah, I know. He's a good guy, but I'm telling you something real practical. You're going to shoot somebody in your home. You make sure he's dead, and you make damn sure that he's got a weapon.
Oh, well, you can't go tampering with evidence.
Right, you keep saying can't. It's just like these big signs that I come to that says no U-turns, and Mrs. Liddy's always saying, you can't do that. And I say, no, what you mean is I may not do that. I can, as I am about to proceed to show you, and then I do it.
I understand the distinction.
Okay, we've only got 30 seconds, sir.
Okay, thanks so much, Mr. Liddy.
You're welcome, sir. All right. All right. Let's move now to the telephones. And up next from Sevierville, Tennessee, is Chuck. Chuck, you're on Radio Free DC.
Oh, that's great. How are you doing, Gordon?
Fine, thank you. You're down there near Upper Gatlinburg?
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful down there.
Very close by Dolly Parton's original hometown.
Yes, very, very nice down there. I've been there numbers of times. I have relatives who live down in Sevierville, and I really enjoy it every time I get to visit you all down there.
Close to the Smoky Mountains, and we have a beautiful sunny day here today. And
boy.
Anyway, it's a great opportunity to talk to you. I wanted to talk, if I could, with you and get your thoughts on the general state of civilization in the United States. It's a broad sort of philosophical term. That's sort of my background in terms of my education, philosophy, psychology, those sorts of things. As in terms of my business, I'm a real estate developer, entrepreneur, and subject to taxation like everybody else.
Yeah.
I tend to, in my personal life, and I don't know if you're like this, tend to run things through a philosophical screen as I deal in my daily life with the minutia of regulation and American Disabilities Acts and those sort of things, which are great impediments to what I try to do.
Yeah, not to mention the Clear Air Act and Clean Air Act and other things that are not in the interest of the country and have been demonstrated not to be, and yet they do it all the time anyway.
Right, and the philosophical screen that I run this through is, from my limited knowledge of history, it seems that civilizations come and go, and they tend to come after a prior civilization has peaked itself out, so to speak, because of an indulgence and concentration of power. And in our present day and age, I think it's been sort of interesting to point at the decline of the Soviet Union and say that is the result of communism. Well, I think that communism and totalitarian governments tend to accelerate the domination over the populace in a bureaucracy, but I think that the underlying decline was a result, ultimately, of a bureaucracy. And I believe that the United States is on the brink of that same potential decline. We think of ourselves as a democracy, and we hope that we are the greatest country in the world. But the fact of the matter is we have an entrenched bureaucracy that's self-serving. More and more people are either directly employed, not just by the federal, but by the state and local governments. And we all vote our pocketbook, and vote meaning all of our daily decisions. And I was wondering, do you have any thoughts as to what may be, as a hopeful tone here, unique to this country that would lead us to believe that we may not go through the same rise and fall of every other civilization? We are unique in that we are a democracy, and that we value the right of the individual in contract.
Well, I agree with you up to a point, but I think that your analysis does not go sufficiently far.
Okay.
You're correct as far as you go, in other words, but the historical decline of nations is caused by more than mere bureaucracy. What happens is when the citizens, well, even that, what happens is when the citizens of the nation, instead of considering themselves and perceiving themselves as autonomous and that they've just banded together to do what they can for one another together in the form of government, only what they cannot do individually, and keep a control on it and limit it and what have you. When they start going from being persons who are self-reliant, self-supporting, and so forth, into a dependency view of government, the government to do things for them, et cetera, and then what you have is that causes a further erosion.
Correct.
And that is what leads to the decline. Let me give you an example. Rome started off as a kingdom. It was small, and there was nothing really outstanding about it vis-a-vis other kingdoms in the area. Some were stronger, some were weaker, and what have you. But then Rome became a republic, and you had the golden age of Rome through the republic, and the Roman Senate was the effective ruling body. These were serious men. They took their responsibilities seriously, and the citizens of Rome viewed themselves as something apart and as special, and they understood that they had a great obligation to Rome. And if you were a member of the aristocracy, why that was even more. You felt even more of an obligation, and so the sons of the aristocrats always went into the legion, usually becoming officers and so forth. Now, so long as Rome and its legions were peopled by Romans and generaled and officered by Romans, and they fought for their country and what have you, Rome stood. But when they had achieved empire and had, through corruption, transformed themselves from a republic to the imperial form of government with the emperor.
Right.
Then the people came to look upon the emperor and his government as the font of everything. They would riot in the streets for bread and circuses, etc. In other words, they had no responsibility for themselves. It was the emperor's responsibility to take care of them. Rome's responsibility to take care of them. And then they started to not serve in the legions. And so what they did was they would hire Germans and what have you to man the legions.
Professional army.
Professional army. And the officer corps was less and less and less. The sons of the aristocracy, they were engaged in pleasure and so forth. And finally, they became so weakened that the persons that they considered to be barbarians simply overwhelmed them.
Right.
It is the corruption of luxury, the corruption of success.
But as our founding fathers recommended, do we not have a standing army? It seems important that we do have a standing army now. But your point, I think I'm learning here, is well taken, that as that becomes privatized, which sounds good in most government applications, you have a tool at the disposal of the emperor or the body, as I call them, and I think we have them right now, bureaucrats.
Well, they always exist, but remember that in this country, we've never had a major war that was not really fought mainly by the citizens.
By the populace.
What happened is the professional, so-called standing army, if you will, they formed the cadre.
Right.
And through conscription and much to the credit of so many people, through voluntary enlistment, both as enlisted men and then coming in as officers through the ROTC programs and through the officer candidate schools and what have you. The vast majority of the military, the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines of the United States who fought the major wars were citizen soldiers.
Right.
And that was very, very important.
Right. Now, the decline you're talking about is overthrow from without, but my concern is the eventual rise within the country of the populace who has been wrung out to the maximum. The workers or providers as opposed to the takers. Mr. Limbaugh has that analogy.
Well, now remember what I said. Yes, it eventually you're destroyed from without, but not until first you have destroyed yourself from within.
Right.
The rot is such that they can know, you lean against them and they collapse.
Right. But what is it unique about this country? And it must be in its ideology, because just the statement of progression as you made it is one that is possible, and I see as potentially likely in this country.
Well, it is, and we
is there something unique about the United States of America?
Well, there was, and there still is some left of it. And anything that is left can be like yeast. It can cause a renewal. It's only when it's all stamped out that you're finished. Now, what we have here is we have the proponents of an aristocratic theory that those of us who go to Yale Law School and then go on over to Oxford and what have you, we are the ones who really understand, and the hoi polloi, the plebeians, the ordinary citizens are not to be trusted to take care of themselves.
Right. And Gordon, I experience this daily in my work because I have to deal with the city officials a lot because of building permits, and I do projects that are civic good. Actually, I'm a center city redeveloper. I do not look for handouts, but sometimes there are public works that are necessary to coincide with the private sector investment. And my experience is, and you just sense it whenever you walk into the city-county building, that you're dealing with people who, and I hate to generalize, but I think it becomes typical of people in governmental jobs. They feel that they are a select, higher group rather than public servants. And most of them are looking at the clock, seeing when the next break is, when they get off. And a lot of those who are in the higher office positions, they have the doors open for them daily, and they go to lunches and treated by others because everybody sucks up to them, excuse the term, for favors.
Yeah,
and so we feed that bloating bureaucry, and it is self-defeating. And
that's true. And one of the problems is we created our own monster. There's no competition, you see, in there. And
competition with government.
Inside government at all. You have this sinecure that they have. Once they're in, and it's virtually impossible to get rid of them. And that needs to be addressed.
It seems that right now not right now, but it seems that we go through cycles. We have a very conservative government for a while, and then it will swing to the left. And this mystifies the other countries of the world because we have no consistency, and maybe that's one of our greatest virtues. But I feel that as in all cycles, there are bigger cycles, and the big cycle is that we're headed farther and farther into a non-productive, bureaucratically entangled government that eventually strangles out the producer, and then within the ranks of the civilian population, there may and probably will be civil revolt.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is first of all, the distinction between, small green arrows and the big red arrows on the chart. But you're right. What happens is the goose that lays the golden eggs is strangled and eaten. And then, of course, there's no more gold. And what that means is that we keep adding to the burdens of the successful people who create the enterprises which provide the jobs, which give us the tax base, and so on and so forth. And we keep saying, well, these people are successful, and so we need to take from them. You destroy incentives.
Right.
And once you do that, why, then the goose just is either strangled or just lies down and dies. And then, you see, this whole business of redistribution of wealth,
absolutely absurd.
Once you do that, and then you destroy wealth, and then there's nothing to redistribute.
Well, it's a false assumption. There's the assumption that there is some pie to be divided out.
Right. Well, that's
understand that you create wealth.
Well, that's it. See, now you've hit another key. The idea of the Clintons and the people who think like them is that economics and wealth and what have you is a zero-sum game. That what we have here is a closed microcosm, that there is X amount of wealth, always has been, always will be, and it is just a question of how we shall divide it up. Because under that theory, if I get $10, obviously that is because I have taken $10 from someone else.
Right.
That is false.
Absolutely.
It is not a zero-sum game. The people like Bill Gates, who created Microsoft, his wealth was earned through creating an enterprise which has employed, hundreds of thousands of other people and created new wealth.
Right. As an entrepreneur, as a person who has his own business, I mean, this is a terrible admission, but I almost am at the point where I don't respect anybody who doesn't have their own business, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. Right? Because they've never met a payroll. They've never been out there risking anything. They've got a nice little secure government job. But you know what? The horrible part of that is.
It may be a government job.
Or anything like that. You know what the horrible part of that is? It is. You can sit there, and let's say you're 25 years old with a job like that. You can sit there and calculate what you'll make when you're 57.
Right.
I mean, it's just awful to live like that. What I enjoy doing is, I don't know how I'm going to do next year. I'm going to work real hard to do real well, but I've got a shot at making a huge amount of money next year. Similarly, I could make relatively little money next year, and so I had to put a lot. That's right. And we put aside feast or famine or what have you. But it is an exciting way to live. I create new enterprises. When I created my newsletter, I created an enterprise. It employs people.
Well, that's living as opposed to subsisting.
Exactly.
That's the lifeblood of the human spirit, whereas subsistence is cancerous. You can tell by the bodies, the facial expressions, the tone of voice of a government employee. Again, a gross generalization, but it's true. These people have no excitement for life. They look forward to the moment being over when they can get out of their work.
Right, and I look forward to getting up in the morning because I enjoy doing what I'm doing.
Well, my work is very stressful and it's hard, but I tell you what, after 6 or 8 months of digging in the trenches and trying to get a building built or restored and get tenants in there, get bank financing, get everything working, to have one person come up to me and say, Chuck, that's just great what you've done for downtown. It makes it all worthwhile. And it's hard to relate that to a person who subsists off of, the 9 to 5. They don't understand the battery charge that you get from somebody appreciating that you have created.
Well, let me put it this way.
You get from somebody appreciating that you have created.
Well, let me put it this way. That Theodore Roosevelt put it best when he talked about the man in the arena. There's two ways you go through life. Some of us go out there, step up to the plate, pick up a bat, and we take our swings. Now, some of us strike out, and some of us hit a home run. But a huge number of people, all they do is sit in the stands and watch.
Right.
All right.
Win some, you lose some, but you got to dress for them all.
And that's right. You got to play that game.
Well, I think that we need a conservative government soon, and we need one that can take control